K-12 stuff, it matters to us in two ways. Number one, a lot of the businesses that we talk to, some of these innovative companies that we would like to stay here or maybe move here and expand here, they want to know that when they have kids and their workers have kids, they're going to go to quality K-12 education, public education systems that are really invested in, because that helps us attract and retain quality workers today. Obviously, it matters tomorrow, too. So it's both a short-term and a long-term issue when you're looking at the K-12 system. If we're not thinking of a long-term education pipeline, then we're not thinking about the future of our economy.
Right.
But as you've pointed out, our bigger problem today is that we got talented 20-year-olds that go to college somewhere else and don't find their way back.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. One of the things that I think in California is a huge advantage has been the community college system.
Yes.
And that's really under-recognized. That's a way that adults can change the path of their life. They can go to that, move eventually to either State College or the University of California, and do it at night or weekends. And what frustrates me is when the community colleges face financial troubles, what they do, cut night and weekend classes.
That's right. At the exact time that the economy is floundering and people have the fewest barriers to entry into education, we cut back in education. That was terrible.
Yeah, and then also, every time the state has a problem and they decide to go after higher education, they cut the University of California some, the state university systems more, and then they just, just are brutal to the community colleges.
And just to throw a number out there, the reason this matters so much, I think, in an economic environment is there are plenty of studies that show in California about 48% of the jobs in the California economy are what we refer to as middle skills. They require a certification, an AA degree, an apprenticeship. They don't necessarily require BAs and PhDs and MAs. Those are only about 30 to 35% of the economy. So when we're talking about educating the workforce, we're not only talking about BAs, we're talking about that access to continuous education and certifications that matter to business.
Yeah, we did some work for the Workforce Investment Board, and they, we surveyed some manufacturers, and we found language skills, elementary leadership skills, clean room skills, stuff like that was needed.
That's right. In manufacturing, though declining in the nation generally as automation reduces the requirement in its productivity and the number of workers, but the number of workers that are required now in manufacturing require extraordinary skills, critical thinking skills, research and development skills, higher level skills, and that's very nerve-wracking because those are great paying jobs, not having those invested by the education system.
Okay. And one other thing I'd like to say about the universities and the higher education is that they tend not to cut back strategically.
Right.
Instead of identifying a loser program or something, because faculty has a lot of power at universities. I spent a lot of time there. They cut everybody the same.
Sure.
So you've got, some professor that's never going to get tenure, get published, gets cut 10%, and so does the Nobel Prize winning chemist.
Right.
And that's no way to run a business.
That's right. And we don't want our universities just to be producing workers, but, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We want them to produce talent that will be productive in the workforce, and they cut good programs. That happens.
Now, one of the things they're doing is increasing the number of foreign students because they pay more.
They pay more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I'm not fine with it. The reason they're doing it is because they pay more. But attracting foreign talent to be educated here would be fantastic if we kept them here, but we're tending not to do that.
No, we ship them back.
Yeah.
And when I was in grad school, every foreign student that came, of course, I was at UC Santa Barbara, one of the beautiful spots in the world, right? They want to stay.
Yeah.
And the best of them sometimes can stay, but all of them want to stay, and all of them would be an improvement and would help the economy.
And instead we send them back and they start new innovative firms all over the world that attract our workers back to them.
And China is sending out huge numbers of students to the United States these days. And
so maybe we can hang on to them better. And we think that we've got the kind of region here in the Central Coast of California that they would want to be.
So you work in the Central Coast, one of the wealthiest spots in the world probably. What about inland California? You talk to your colleagues in Central Valley?
And they're struggling in ways that we don't. We struggle because of the high cost of housing and living here, and you've got comparatively lower costs in the Central Valley.
Sure.
But they're struggling to try and figure out how do you convert from a very agriculturally based economy to something that diversifies across other higher paying industries. We've struggled with that in Ventura County, and I think we're doing pretty well with the balance. But Central California is growing.
Ventura County.
Mm-hmm.
Median income's what, over $50,000?
Right there.
And the average income for a farm worker is like $22,000, $23,000. You got to wonder how these people are living.
It's tough, and I sure don't have the answer on it, but you're right. There have been some studies, I think it was at the Brookings Institute, don't want to give them a plug, but they identified in an odd way that they thought Ventura County was an oddity because we had one of the widest gaps between a high number of low-wage workers and a higher number of higher-wage workers, the Amgens and others who are paying these doctorates in the R&D community.
In the middle.
And, if we're missing the middle, I get it, but I don't think they caught that in their report, and that's sort of my point. I understand because of our mix of high income and high tech industries and ag, we have that wide diversity of pay ranges and workers. Sure. But I'm not sure it's an indication of a struggling economy. I think it's an indication of one that's struggling with its diversity.
For a California economy, it's doing pretty well.
Doing well.
And 20% below state unemployment rate.
That's right. We're about 10th in the state of the counties in unemployment. So that's a good place to be.
So let's talk about Central California first. Right now. We have 5 counties in California with 20% unemployment rate.
Yeah.
And recently, and I don't know how this happened, Colusa became the highest unemployment county in the United States. Usually it's Imperial.
Yeah.
And I've got a sort of a story on Imperial. There's a lot of underground economy going on there. But there's no underground economy in Colusa County.
No.
And we've got all these other places with just terrible unemployment rates. And I just don't see how Central Coast, they get water cut back, regulations hurting them. Particularly regulation on pesticides, herbicides, and all that. And so it's going to be a challenging area for California.
It's going to be stormwater runoff, both for urban and rural uses. Water management is one of the largest issues that create anxiety amongst our business friends in this region today.
So if you were going to do a state policy for economic development, you got 3 things you could do. What would be the 3, just specific to?
Well, that's tough. I may end up with more than 3.
Okay.
Right now, the state of California, and this is a point that we haven't talked about, has sort of a mishmash of industrial development bond financing that business can access. But it's horribly fragmented, and it's not nearly as robust as other states, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Michigan, while in trouble. And Texas. These are states that have figured out how to create low-cost industrial development bond financing or infrastructure financing for businesses. And I think California could, without a whole lot of financial investment, straighten that out and give businesses access to low-cost capital. Number 2, going back to an earlier point, I think California does need to figure out how to get rid of duplicated regulations and figure out how to communicate to business that this is the way you navigate your way through them efficiently. We can worry about the costs of doing that to business in another discussion, but we need to streamline the process.
And the uncertainty.
The uncertainty of it. And I think the state could do a whole lot more in terms of workforce education generally. I mean, that's both in terms of the community college financing that we're talking about. It's part of the K-12 and university system. But I think there are other state resources that could be put out there in a way. California has an incredibly innovative program called the Employment Training Panel Funding. It's a piece of the unemployment insurance tax. It funds training for businesses in California to the tune of about $80 million right now a year. You could double or triple that. Nobody would even feel the cost of it, but the worker benefit out of it would be spectacular. This is one of the few pieces of innovation that California has that's comparatively better than what other states have, and I think we should expand it and accentuate it because we ought to be talking about innovation and skills in the labor force and investing in it in a way that we can then champion.
Got a couple minutes. What about green technology? California, we've got a governor and a legislature seems to think that's going to bail us out.
You know, I'm ambivalent on this one, but I tend to be... Let me tell you a different story. Okay. That would be a story different than yours. Okay. There are a couple of firms in Ventura County. I can name them by name. One's called Transonic Combustion. Another one is called Cool Planet. These are firms, both of them have around 80 engineers employed in Ventura County, high-tech workers, high-wage workers, and they're figuring out how to take advantage of the innovation in fuel cell technology, any number of things. And in a way, they are, to take a positive spin on the governor's green economy stuff, they figure this is the wave of the future and they're going to use that as a catalyst to do innovative things. So it works for them. But I hear you loud and clear that for your average business that's just trying to make do with its existing old technology, they get clobbered by the costs.
I agree. It's at the frontier. You know,
Yeah.
one of the big supporters of the green regulations is venture capital firms,
Yeah.
and that's because they've got a big investment in these things, and eventually they expect to get a payoff.
So being a kind of greedy regional economic developer, we look at policy like that. We don't lobby it, pro or con. We try to figure out how we help our businesses take advantage of it.
Sure. You know, somebody else writes the rules, you play the game.
That's right.
Okay. So tell us about your organization. And what you
we're
do
a
with it.
regional public-private collaborative. What we do is we take public and private sector joint investment and work with small to medium-sized businesses in the region to do small business consulting, lending. We help them with their business plans, access to capital, and we look to try and do anything that we can to accelerate growth and job creation in Ventura County and Santa Barbara area. So what we do is we create a team of expert, no-cost professionals to get inside businesses, work with the business management and leadership, and make sure that they're accessing the resources, getting resources about market opportunities, help them grow and create jobs.
Is this for businesses that are located here, want to locate here?
Both. Our primary target in an economic development strategy is to retain and grow the existing business base, but we're equally interested, I would say, in attracting new businesses to come here. That's a trickier thing, and they tend to be great ribbon-cutting moments, and you don't get as much bang for the buck on your investment there. It's the growth of your existing base that we're most interested in.
And how do businesses contact you?
They can contact us in a couple of different ways. Our phone is 805-384-1800, or we're on the web at edc-vc.com, and we can turn around an appointment with somebody within a couple of days.
Okay, and you have lending programs and all sorts of things like that.
We have a loan pool that's around $9 to $10 million right now, and we facilitate business access to capital in partnership with banks and SBA lenders. In the first quarter of this year, we helped clients of ours access about $3.5 million in new capital investment, and we see that accelerating each quarter as we're going forward. Banks are still sitting on a lot of money, but we're starting to see it move just a little bit.
Yeah, and Ventura County's one of their sort of semi-secret advantages is the Port of Hueneme. Can you help them negotiate dealing with them? And
we can. There are a couple of ways that we can do that. Port of Hueneme has what's called a foreign trade zone designation. So firms that are exporting, or importing, I should say, whether through the Port of Hueneme or through Los Angeles, other ports, once you bring the product online, there are some trade advantages in bringing raw product into the region. But yeah, we're working with the port to help them identify some new customers, and most importantly, help existing businesses attach their opportunities to their customers.
Okay, great. So I'm being told we'll run out of time. Thank you very much. And thank you for attending Economics with Dr. Bill. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and found it a little more interesting than your typical economic stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.